We are at the Penn Stater in State College today for the PMEA Leadership Summit, and we are doing today's Take Note from here as a PMEA update. Well, hello everybody and welcome to this edition of PMEA's Take Note podcast. As I said, we are here at the Penn Stater Hotel in State College as part of the PMEA Leadership Summit, and we are filled with a room of music educators, and so I want to acknowledge all of them here, so welcome to all of you. I want you to applaud for yourselves, please. So we have a lot of excited music educators here, and that's what we're really happy to see. But what we're going to do on today's podcast is we're going to be talking to PMEA leadership as kind of an update of what's going on in PMEA. So let me introduce everyone that's here. Sue Basalik, who is president-elect, Rebecca Sensor, who is president, and Brett Keith, who is immediate past president. So we're just going to talk about some various things happening, and I'm going to invite each of you to kind of jump in with the goal of just informing the membership of what's happening maybe behind the scenes and go a little more into detail. So let's start with kind of very broad. We are in the midst of strategic plan review, also some bylaws review. Talk to us a little about what's happening in that area.
Great. So there are little things that really make any organization are the structural planning, and we're in the middle of a lot of that right now. And we've heard from our membership, like one of the bylaws going to get updated, our policy manuals, and every 5 years we do a new strategic plan. So we are right in the thick of all of those things right now. They've just happened to line up that they're all happening at the same time. We've started our bylaw committee. Some of the members of that committee are in this room, so I thank those people. And we are also cleaning up our policy manuals, and we are continuing today. We're on like the last legs of our strategic plan, and I can hand it over to you because you kind of started that process with us.
Yeah, so last year at this event, we began our initial brainstorming process with strategic plan, where we took input from our leadership and our members who were here at this event, and then began to kind of structure some of the questions that we wanted to ask our members, and what are our goals that are driven by the members? What do our members want and need? And also, most importantly, even discussing those questions with non-members, people within the music education ecosystem, so that we as an organization can really support all of us, that really when we draw in, that we are all connected, that we focus and we work for the good of music education as a whole. So we began that work last year at this event, and from that we had subsequent meetings where we also met in the Poconos for about a day and a half, where we really dove into creating a survey that was getting set out to members, non-members, and people within our music education world. And from that we pared that down and focused that conversation to gain feedback, but also to analyze that raw data, to look at that then through writing teams in different areas. Through strategic plan, we've identified columns in areas that we feel are some of the main things that we were hearing based on the data that we received. And I will also add that data includes feedback from live town halls that were had in the midwinter. And we had some really, really great conversations from a lot of folks in those town halls, which has impacted the work that we are doing. And so in the past couple of months, we got our writing teams together, and we have now gotten to the point where just today and tomorrow, we're going to be looking at what that starts to mean as far as a draft, so that we can prepare that for our board here through the organization, but so that it then can be not only just approved by that board, but sent out to our membership for eyes and feedback, where we totally get public opinion on that from our members before it is officially adopted from our members as a whole. And so we are nearing the end of that writing draft phase, where we're getting ready to start looking at this as a nearly complete rough draft product to put that out to our members. So it's been a really great informative process. We've learned a lot that has informed bylaws, policy, and what we want to see and what our members want to see from our organization in the next 5 years, but also thinking about what happens beyond that 5 years too.
And I think one of the things that I've noticed in some of these conversations in the strategic plan is we don't really know what is going to be happening in education or music education in the next 5 years, but that is specifically part of the conversations, which is very important. We have to be prepared for whatever that uncertainty is.
Right. I was just going to say, we need to thank everybody in our membership that took the time to do that survey, because that is really driving how we are writing these the strategic plan. And also, I need to thank member Scott Sheehan for really leading the team that's doing the strategic plan. He has such a wealth of knowledge in writing the strategic plan. He's helping several other states at the same time, but we're lucky to have him here in Pennsylvania and leading the way with the strategic plan.
Talk about the bylaws.
So the bylaws, I believe there's 11 of them, and we are on number 6. So we are like halfway through the bylaws, and we're really cleaning up, thinking about from the perspective of the strategic plan, and where we're thinking about the future, and where can this propel us forward, not just talk about what we're doing now, but for the longevity of our organization, how can we grow, and the bylaws can still grow with us and not hold us back from growing. That's a lot of what we're looking at with the bylaws right now.
So one of the big things that I think a lot of members heard about in the past few months is this talk of, I don't know what the right word is, we can say changing, reimagining, there's many words you can use, but there's been a lot of looking into the conference and the festival system. Currently, All-State and the conference happen together in the spring. There's been a lot of talk of, are there ways to change that? And there's been lots of discussions. Becky, you've been at the center of most of those. Do you want to dive into this, and we'll let anybody else jump in as well?
Sure. I've been on my PMEA Goodwill tour, and I've visited either through Zoom or in person most of the districts in our state. And I need to say that thank you, first of all, for having me and listening. And this is a discussion. And it's a needed discussion, because when we're looking towards the future, when we're looking upon growing our organization, it's always good to see, can we keep doing what we're doing now? Can we do more? Are we meeting everyone's needs with the ensembles that we have now, with the conference that we have now? Could we do more? And it all started with, how do we add more ensembles? And from that, it grew into, but how do we add more ensembles? And looking at other things. Once we started looking at playing around with our conference a little bit and what our conference has to offer, being at the same time as those all-state ensembles, that got us into thinking about things that maybe aren't quite working right now the way we want them to, and how could we change things to fix some of those problems. We've been in the Poconos several times, and we're asking the teachers that teach around the Poconos to do an awful lot during those days. And we're asking the school districts that are in the Poconos to be responsible for an awful lot in those days. And where our All-State Festival falls right now isn't great for all of the teachers in our state due to the PSSAs, which is an immovable force that we have to reckon with every year. So there's things that are, I don't want to harp on problems, but there are things that aren't great right now. And if we could grow and change and fix things at the same time, let's do that. So we've been having this conversation on the right way to do it and the right way to add things, and it's nothing we're jumping into. And that's one thing that I really want everyone to know is, when I go and talk to people about the proposals that came out of the task force that was formed to do this, and we've taken the last year to go talk about the task force and get feedback, so this year we can reconvene the task force and talk about that feedback. I take everything that everyone says super seriously, and I write it down, and I really think about it. And it's really, really shaped where this conversation is going, and it changes daily. It really does. And it really has evolved and grown into something I'm really excited about, because every time we get a new version of what this could be, it's a better version. And that's because of the feedback that we're getting from all of you. And so I'm exceptionally excited about the conversations we're having.
Well, I was just going to say, before you go, like, I mean, do you want to kind of tease a little what some of the thoughts are?
Sure. So we're looking at other states. I have a notebook that has what 42 of our 50 states do. And just talking to other music education leaders in different states, and what do you do at your conference? Having these conversations and writing things down and seeing how they work. For instance, in Maryland, and I got to speak at their fall conference last year, they do a fall smaller conference, and then they do a larger conference in the spring with their all-state groups. And this feels like a really nice stepping stone for what we could possibly do in the future, but maybe look at what that could look like with 2 events and steer it from there. There's other states that do a fall conference, and they do their big all-state groups in the spring without a conference. There's groups that do them all together in the summer, which we probably wouldn't do, but it's something that other people do. So it's looking at what other states do and also saying, but how could that work in Pennsylvania? Because not everything could, because we're a unique, beautiful state, and we're going to have our unique, beautiful problems and our unique, beautiful ways to solve them. So that's what we're looking at, is how to take what other people are doing, play around with it, see if we can do it better because we're Pennsylvania, and then take those ideas and add everybody's voice to it and make it bigger. Because we don't know what everything will look like until you do it, but we can reimagine, and we can see what ideas we can take from our members to build something pretty awesome.
Any other thoughts?
Yeah, do you want to?
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in here because, I think one of the things that, as we often talk about what can be big change, look at where it came from. Because I think the reason this whole conversation started was because we were in a situation, it's a good problem to have, to say our conference in the past 4 years has grown exponentially, to the point where even some of our current locations are struggling to meet our capacity and our needs. And that's a wonderful problem that we have within our organization. I can't even say it's a problem. It's just something that you have to work through logistically. And then also on the same side, as far as vision and perspective from our members, we're constantly hearing questions and asking the questions like, well, what about this type of ensemble? What about this type of student opportunity? As we all know, and we've said it for years, PMEA doesn't just serve our students. Even though it's the most visible portion of our organization, that's only a pillar of what we do, besides advocacy, professional development, curriculum, and all of the other work that we're doing, including now adding in our industry partners, which is a huge part of our communities to help support what we do, where we're now looking at this and saying, okay, our old model may not fit. And so, but, we're not just doing this to blow it up. We respect what we did. We've gotten here for particular reasons and on the shoulders of so many. But what more can we do, and how can we do that? I think that's the question of how can we reimagine what we do and still continue what our foundational philosophies are as far as an organization. And I know Becky has been the face of this, and I know she mentions the task force in all this, and I think that's what's most important, is that we're trying to gain the feedback, not just from Becky's perspective, even though she's been the one to do this, where that she's been kind of chairing this task force. There's been so many other individuals involved in gathering that feedback. I look at how many we've talked in this room, and then the many who are going to see it, or hear this, that we have not had personal connections with, but we're gathering feedback through our district presidents and our leadership across the state to really understand, like, what does this look like? And we also know that if this becomes a reality, even from the direction of additional leadership within the organization, there's going to be a lot of what ifs, as we know that. And those are the questions, and they're good to ask, and they're good problems to have. But the fact that there's so much awareness around what is going to be best for our organization, our members, and our students, and our field throughout this process. And I will say that that's not being taken lightly, and that goes to a year ago, when a board meeting said, let's explore this further. We're not taking action, but let's see what this looks like. 2 conversations that we had just last night at our leadership board meeting to say, what else do we need to see in this process? Are we ready to think about this? Is there a major proposal that needs to happen? Or do we need to look at something different? And I think that's the most important part that we do this, is that we're gaining the feedback from those who are going to be affected by it the most.
You've heard us talk many times during this conversation about reimagination. Reimagination will not only apply to our conference and our events, but as we review the bylaws and the policies, et cetera, we will also be taking a look at how our councils are working. Are they meeting our current needs, or perhaps do we need to reimagine how our councils function, what the membership would be? So reimagine is a great word for these times, which I'm sure are going to lead us into a very, reimagination will definitely lead us in a very positive direction.
All right, I'll use the word reimagine again then, to talk about a conversation that's come up about how Region Orchestra works. I know there's been a little bit of talk about that. There's no plans, there's nothing official, but can we talk just a little bit about that?
So, as you are probably well aware, we currently have 4 region orchestras. We have Western Region State Orchestra, which is comprised of districts 1 to 6. We have North Central Region Orchestra, which is currently comprised of districts 7 and 8. And then we have another Central Region Orchestra that takes care of districts 9 and 10. I think that's right. Yeah, that's right. And then we have Region 6, better known as the Eastern Region Orchestra, and that is districts 11 and 12. What we are finding, however, is perhaps it might be time to reimagine our model of region orchestra, keeping Western Region State Orchestra, but in order to better meet the needs of our students and our orchestral programs in districts 7, 8, 9, and 10, combining those 4 districts to form one region orchestra, and then keeping Region 6 Orchestra, the Eastern Region Orchestra, the same. Things have changed, and we're looking at models that might better represent where our orchestra programs are across the state.
This is still in the very early stages, but it has come from directly from district presidents who have said this is a change that we are looking into and needing based on the number of orchestra programs in each of the districts. And for some of our districts, there just aren't enough programs to have your own district orchestra. So that's really where that's coming from. It's a need that our members have brought to our attention, which I just want to mention is like the point of our organization. We are a member-driven organization. So when things aren't working, it's great to hear about them. And that's exactly where this idea has come from. Looking at things that have already been what we thought were settled in the past and maybe didn't work out the right way, to look at them again and say, how can we do this better? How can we move this forward so it's best for everyone involved? So it's another project we're taking on, and looking forward to working with those district leaders to make sure we do it right.
So let's zoom out from the logistics and types of things of PMEA a little bit. Let's talk about something I know we talked about it last year during this session, the arts education standards. And we are way further down the line than we were 12 months ago, and we're at a pretty exciting space. I know we have some people here who were on that review team, so let's talk about the update on it and also where we are.
Sure. There's other people in the room, too, that were a part of this group. It was a really special group. Sue and I got to be a part of this, and it was several days throughout the year, getting together. Well, we got together in the summer, we got together in the fall, and then again in February, and hashed out verbs for most of the time, and just really thought about, the standards were last adopted in 2002. So for a lot of people in this room, that's your whole career or most of your career. And so when you're looking at new standards for the state, you're talking about things that might be around for another 20 years. So you got to make sure it's going to last, and it's going to stand the test of at least 20 years' time. Right. And so that's what we really took that very seriously, but also thought about every classroom in Pennsylvania, not just the ideal classroom in Pennsylvania, but every single teacher in every single school and how they could adapt what we were writing to their curriculum and to their classroom. I'm going to talk more about that.
That seems simple.
Yeah. It's so simple. Every school district,
The new standards, once they are adopted, will be more reflective of current educational practices. For instance, the past standards did not address universal design for learning. The new standards will. The new standards were written with an eye toward DEI. The previous standards did not. Things will look different, and I think you'll probably really like them. Again, there were 15 people from PMEA who participated in this committee. We had the largest group there. And you'll be able to recognize our involvement. They are going to state hearings, one next month in Pittsburgh or in the Pittsburgh area, and then in September in the Philadelphia area. You are welcome to watch the hearings. The hearings will be online as well as be in person. You are welcome to watch online, and please offer any online comment because we are looking for feedback. We would the tentative plan, I believe, after this is, one more review after the hearings are finished?
Yes.
Okay.
It goes through this public comment,
Right,
then it
public
goes before IRC, the Independent Regulatory Review Commission.
The hope is that they will be adopted sometime next year. We're really, really looking forward to seeing their adoption.
So, and we will, PMEA members, you'll see an email. We're going to send an email out about this where you can link right to the draft standards, and there will be information on how you can provide commentary. And I've witnessed the standards review for other subject areas, and they're required actually to review all of that feedback and respond as appropriate. So this is very important for you all to have voice in this. It has gone before the State Board of Education twice. The first time it went before the State Board, they asked for some revision and some changes, which was done over about a 2-month period. And then just earlier in July, it went before the board again, and the board essentially gave their blessing to move on to the next step. So you will, every PMEA member will be receiving an email soon about how to take part in this, and commendable to all of you for the hard work, because yes, it was working with music, but you were also in there with other arts disciplines, where yes, the concepts are the same, but the way you're achieving the concepts are different in each discipline. And so I know verbiage and a lot of those things were a huge part of it. So, and I'm sure you all learned a lot from this process.
Yes.
Well, we became masters of the fine arts of compromise
Yes.
and wordsmithing.
Yes. Okay, so since we're talking about kind of state things, let's just talk a little like the advocacy work that is being done by PMEA both at the state and federal level. If any of you want to comment just a little bit on that.
Well, we just got back in June. We got to go to Hill Day for NAFME and visit with some of our representatives there. That's always very, very enlightening to see how Washington works and to be in those offices. And we still continue to have our Advocacy Day in Harrisburg every year in March. And that's something that is also very eye-opening, and just running around the Capitol, making sure we get our message to every single office and climbing all the stairs and delivering all of our packets to each office is always very interesting. And just not to harp on what I said in my introduction to everyone this morning, and for those of you that might be watching on the Take Note podcast, but we're all leaders, but we're also all advocates. So PMEA has a PMEA advocacy toolkit that is fantastic. It's on almost every one of your district websites, and it's a great way to tap into that and do advocacy on your own. But just a reminder, what we do every day is just short of magic, and for those kids especially. And don't be afraid to speak up and tell everybody what you're doing, because that everyday advocacy really, really, really matters in your own classroom. Want to talk about advocacy?
I was just going to say, and Mark, I might kind of hijack this and turn this interview on you for a moment, but when we were in Washington a couple weeks ago, we were talking with our legislators about some of the specific things that we're looking at, and not just about funding and we want more money, but also the conversations of how we want that money to be spent and what guidance our federal and state government can give our school districts and our leaders within there to help them, because what we're finding in some of those conversations is that we, as the educators, almost have to find the creative ways to continue to help those other leaders or build the bridge together to say that, did you know that Title IV can be spent on this? and this is how we can use this. We are a lot of creative thinkers. That is some of our bread and butter, is being creative, and so finding ways to bring that all together. And I think one of those ways, when we saw that, Mark, when we were sitting in one of our leaders' office in DC, you were talking about, you know, how AI and technology still needs a creative input for that information and that data to be there. And I know that we need to continue to prove that that input is needed there. Not just prove it, but show it and do it, and so that we can continue to find ways in which we can support what we do, not just in the amount of funding, but how we are actually doing it. And I think we're finding that that has become maybe some of the struggle, you know, or at least the process that we have to work through in the logistics to make that happen. I don't know if you want to speak on that further.
Yeah, I will. I'll step on the soapbox briefly about that. So, you know, as we go into this changing economy now, where there is so much, there's so much pressure on two things. There's pressure on workforce development, and there's pressure on the concern of changing jobs, particularly as a result of AI. But when you look at some studies and research that has come out of some major employers, what they are saying is, yeah, the data entry jobs are likely going to be an issue here because of what AI can do. But we still need the people who can figure out what we're asking AI to do. We need the people with all of those durable skills. And what Brett's talking about was when we were in an office, I think we kind of knew the audience, that that particular representative was concerned about workforce issues, not necessarily about education issues. Not that he was opposed to education, but whenever we reframed it and said, the durable skills that are taught in music and arts education are still incredibly valuable in the changing economy. In fact, they're probably more valuable than ever, because we need people who have that creativity, who know what to ask, not just how to say, give me this data. They have to know, what are we looking for and why? And that is part of the changing conversation now, as you said, when we go in, because most of what we ask for at the federal and the state level is money. But the lawmakers want to know, is the money being used effectively? And that has been something that for years we have surveyed and said, okay, we know that the money is being used for these things for the good of arts education, for the good of students. Now it's this next step of, we have to zoom out because of all of the focus on workforce and the concern about what AI will do. And so I think the challenge to all music educators, all music advocates of any kind, is always know your audience and be prepared with those pieces of the puzzle.
And an interesting, real quick side note on that, this was a legislator who was from my own district, who is heavily supportive of music, arts, theater, and dance, sponsorships of those types. And yet, until we reframed that question, then it became connected. And then everything changed in that conversation. Again, wasn't opposed. I mean, he opened our conversation with, I was ready to see your High School Musical the last month, And so, once we were able to make those connections, then it was productive. But it also fit the work that is actually happening within Congress at this point.
We provided more of that evidence to back it up. So that is just a kind of an advocacy tip. So we're quickly running out of time here. I just want to kind of jump back. We talked a lot about these PMEA things that are happening, the bylaws and these proposals and all the reimagining, if you will. We're going to count how many times we said reimagining in the past half hour. So I just, if you can make clear to folks, like, you want to hear from everyone. Communication is important here.
Communication is key in any organization, especially ours. I really, truly, truly do want to hear from everybody that has an opinion on anything going on in our state. I do think transparency is important. I do think that communication is important. So you can always reach us. Our emails are on the website, but rebecca.censor@pmea.net is always a great way to get in touch with me. community and ask any questions and send any concerns, whether, it's on the future of our ensembles or the future of our conferences, or you really just passionate about bringing back the alto clarinet, whatever that concern is for you, we want to hear it, and we want to talk about it, and we want to have a discussion, because it is not an organization led by the people up here. It is really led by everybody in the organization, and you're just telling us what direction that we're steering everything in. We're going to take that feedback and we're going to move it forward. We're not going to tell you how you should feel about your own organization, because things don't work that way. So any time you have any questions or concerns, the people up here are willing to hear those questions and concerns.
Well, Sue, Becky, and Brett, thanks for being here to discuss all of this with us. And Becky, I believe this is number 7.
I think this is my 7th.
So
take note.
yeah, we don't give the jacket out until 10, but you're inching closer. But thank you all for being here with us. And again, reach out as you have questions, concerns, or comments. Thanks to all of you in the room for being here for this, and thanks to all of you for joining us on this edition of PMEA's Take Note Podcast.